oh no, we're in a housing bubble and the prices are going to burst. They're going to drop. I mean, that's what we've been hearing, right? Well, we have some numbers from the first quarter of this year that might start to explain exactly what is happening with home prices. Now, I want you to be sure to know that I'm going to be sharing with you some national numbers. And when it comes to real estate, as I've said before, it really is about local. But national trends are important, and it's important to know what's going on in markets nationwide, as eventually they will have some effect on us locally. But I will be interjecting what is happening here in the local Knoxville, Tennessee market as we look at what's going on with national numbers. So let's first look at this quote from Doug Duncan. He says, on a quarterly basis, home prices rose seasonally adjusted 1% in the first quarter of 2023. The fact that prices rose slightly in the first quarter is evidence of significant pent-up mortgage demand, despite ongoing affordability constraints. So what we saw in the fourth quarter of last year is we saw interest rates effectively double, in a short period of time, like a 30-day period, which has never happened before. And it kind of put everybody on pause, kind of stun mode. I mean, we were all kind of waiting to see what was going to happen. Were the rates going to come down? Were they going to continue to go up? And what we found is they've kind of leveled out. They did go up and they stayed up. They have not come down significantly, but it has become a bit of the new norm that we're seeing, and people still need houses. It still makes more sense to purchase a house than it does to rent, even if your interest rate's 6-7%. So there's been this pent-up demand, and now there's plenty of buyers out there, but at the same time, there's just not enough homes for sale. So let's see what has happened with prices. So this goes back to January of 2022. You can see the orange in the first half of the year where prices were continuing to trend up. And then after about mid-year, we saw them flatten and even go negative in several markets across the country. And if you look now as we get into 2023, February and March, we're seeing now just a slight uptick. That 1% uptick, which is significant because we were told that prices were going to drop. Now, national headlines have talked about prices dropping as recent as just a month ago. That's not been the case in Knoxville. We've seen prices continue to rise. In fact, in February, the year-over-year increase for Knox County was over 10%, so still double digits. What's important is that we're seeing nationwide now that prices are already rebounding after what's a very slight decrease in the fourth quarter of last year. And this follows, 2 years of record double-digit increases. So the doom and gloom, the sky is falling, the bubble's going to burst, it hasn't happened. In fact, it's already reversing itself. And this has to do with the buyer demand and the lack of inventory. So let's see what Andy has to say here. He says just 5 months ago, prices were declining on a seasonally adjusted month-over-month basis in 92% of all major U.S. markets. So 5 months ago, prices were declining in 92% of the markets. Now, Knoxville was not one of those. We were in the 8%. But even so, you fast forward to March, and the situation has done a complete 180, with prices now rising in 92% of the markets from February. So you've got a significant shift that prices were on a decline, and now they've done a 180, and they're coming back. We're also seeing people adjust their forecast. So here's an example of Fannie Mae's forecast. They had forecasted a 4.2% drop in home prices, and they changed that to now 1.2% just a month later. And that's a 3% shift is pretty significant. And here we are still only in early part of this year. So, they predict, and, we look at their predictions because they're supposed to be the experts. But we know just how difficult it is to really predict what's going to go on in the housing market. And what we know for sure is that the doom and gloom, the prices dropping off a cliff, is apparently not happening. It didn't happen, and it's already turning around. And remember, as I always say, we got to look at the local. In Knoxville, we didn't have price declines. Now, we have some sellers that thought they could just put any price out there, just pick a price out of the sky, and it was going to sell. And that's definitely not the case either. So as a result of sellers being overzealous and trying to overprice the market, locally we have seen price reductions, but this is not a decrease in the value of the house. It was just a miscalculation on what that house was worth at the time they put it on the market. So what we are seeing here in the Knoxville market is that prices remain strong. In fact, double-digit increase. What we see on the national landscape is that prices dipped in the fourth quarter of last year, and already after the first quarter of 2023, that is being reversed. 92% of the markets were in decline 5 months ago, and now in February, 92% of the markets are on an upswing. What does that mean for you? If you're a buyer, if you're a seller, what does that mean? It means that real estate is, and really has been, except for one brief moment in the Great Recession in 2008, 2009, increasing. Values have been increasing. And even when we had that slight dip of increase in the Great Recession, it rebounded quickly. So I'm going to do another video. So the next video that will be coming out next week, we'll talk about the rise of foreclosures, something else that we're hearing a lot about in the media. But if you're a seller right now, here's what you need to know. There are not enough homes on the market. When do you want to sell to maximize your price? When you don't have as much competition. So it is still a seller's market. Prices are still on the rise. But what if you're a buyer? Well, even though that there is still competition, it's still not as great as it was even a year ago. We're still seeing some instances of multiple offers, but we're still not seeing as many offers per property as we did a year ago. So for buyers, you have a better opportunity to negotiate what I would call a normal contract that has your normal contingencies with regard to home inspections and appraisals, and you don't have to worry about waiving those things like people were doing, a year or two ago. And then also when it comes to interest rates, the interest rates have kind of leveled out. They change on a daily basis, but there are ways to mitigate that rate for the short term. It's called a buy down. So you can buy down a rate, or there's different programs where you can do a 2-1 buy down where that rate is bought down over a 2-year period to a lower rate, or a 3-1 buy down where it's bought down over a 3-year period to a lower rate, with the idea of being date the rate. You should date the rate. You should fall in love with the house, because a couple of years down the road, you might be able to, we may have interest rates drop again, and you always have the ability to refinance. I mean, there's talk of recession. So what if we actually go into recession? What does that mean for home prices? What does that mean for interest rates? Well, over the course of the last several recessions, we saw that home prices actually continued to increase. But we saw interest rates decrease, because when the economy slows and they want to heat it back up, one of the tools for doing that is lowering rates. And that's actually what we saw coming out of the Great Recession, which led to a long period of time of some of the lowest rates in history. So if we do go into recession, it still is not doom and gloom for the housing market. Hey, I hope you have found this information helpful. It is so difficult to know what's really going on in the housing market when you're reading headlines. Headlines are there to terrify, and they don't clarify. And my name is Jeff Grebe. I'm broker owner of Weichert Realtors Advantage Plus in Knoxville, Tennessee. We've got 2 offices and over 60 agents to serve you. And we want to make sure that you have the correct information if you're looking to buy or sell a home. So that's what this channel is all about. That's why I do these market updates. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you got some good information. And I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel. I would love it if you would share my video with a friend. I would love it if you would comment. If you have questions that I can answer, please put them in the comments below. I would love to meet with you and to answer all of your questions about what is going on here in the Knoxville, Tennessee real estate market. This is Jeff Grebe with Weichert Realtors Advantage Plus, and I appreciate your time today.